down what makes a good team and what doesn't, and that's why I'm going to go into it now. I came up with 10 keys, and look, they spell creativity. Isn't that cool? It took me a long time to get that going. Camaraderie, responsibility, empowerment, adversity, talent, integration, viewpoints, inspiration, tune in, and the yes and philosophy of improv. So I'm proud of myself for that. First one, camaraderie. I think the best way for this one to really sink in, because you guys might think, oh, that's oversimplified. I want you to think about the last time you were in a group setting and you were trying to arrive at some kind of agreement on something and you just couldn't, and you wanted to slap somebody. Can you guys think about that? And you probably were thinking, I wish everybody just was thinking the way I do. Has anybody ever had that experience? Wish you were just thinking the way I do. If you all thought the way I did, we would just get through this, we'd agree, and we'd move on. Okay, well, here's why that's not always a great idea. And the analogy here is, if you're doing music, if you're always playing a C, that's boring. C, 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 C. If you're the cellist and you want it to all be about you, and you're playing a C, is that good music? It's not good music. You need all the different instruments to blend together to make good music. And here's the thing, you have to remember next time you're looking at somebody and you might want to them, everybody on a team has a unique and important role to play. And in this example, it might be a violin, a cello, bass, what have you. And what happens is, if you can honor the fact that everybody's different and allow what happens when they come together to just emerge, you're going to get wonderful, wonderful music. How many of you have just ever listened to a piece of music and it was so beautiful you almost wanted to cry? I can tell you that that did not happen because somebody was going, It happened because a lot of people who came from different backgrounds and playing different instruments just let something greater come. You guys have all heard of the saying, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So that's what happens if you can just sit tight long enough and let somebody else say something that maybe you don't agree with right away. Responsibility. I am now living in Atlanta, and I just had a show a couple of weeks ago, my first show there. It was interesting because my friends there just sort of assumed, it was on a Friday night, they just sort of assumed I would come with my guitar and play that Friday and I'd be ready. No, if you're gonna do a show or play in a symphony, you have to practice, man. Practice, 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 practice. You have to learn the song. You have to, for example, I play guitar, I have to change the strings on my guitar before I come in, or it's not going to sound as good. I have to tune the guitar. I have to make sure that the little, I can't remember what it's called. I'm jet lagged a little bit. Where you put the jack into you have to make sure that that's working. And if you're recording a song in a studio and not everybody's learned their parts, or they don't bring their instruments in good shape, what's going to happen? You're not going to move very fast. And guess what? They charge by the hour. And if you come to a show and somebody forgot their capo, that's something that you put on the fret what are you going to do? It messes everything up. So just like being on a team in the real world, sometimes you might think all you have to do is just sit down, plop down in a chair and arrive. But a lot of times you can take initiative. Maybe you need to research something. If you're trying to make a decision between a couple of things, maybe you can take it upon yourself to research it out, or just think about how you can add to others' decision-making process, and you'll do so much better than if you just sort of come passively. Empowerment. I think it's really important that teams empower their leaders, but also that leaders empower their teams. And I've been in the corporate world long enough to tell you that this doesn't always happen. I've certainly seen it not happen. But I have two examples here. I don't know if you can see these very well, but I have one example of a conductor leading a symphony. In that case, that's a team that's pretty much worked out their vision, right? How many of you have ever gone to hear a symphony? All right, and everybody's pretty much, you can tell they're pretty much on the same page, right? You don't have a fiddle player suddenly go, improv solo, right? That doesn't happen. So in that case, everybody's sort of agreeing on the vision and just they're following the leader. But there's other teams that haven't quite got the vision together yet, right? And I thought a good example of that is somebody improvising. I don't know if you can see that picture, but there's somebody there improvising a solo. So we can say, for just purposes of argument, that that is the leader of the team. So what are the people in the background doing? Have you ever thought about what the people in the background are doing while that person is figuring out a solo on the spot? Do you think they're like coming up with wild and crazy and interesting and inspiring ideas? They're playing the same chords over and over again. You want to poke your eye out with the stick after a while. It's kind of boring for you, but for that person who's coming up with solo, it's exactly what they need. Does that make sense? So just knowing when to empower the leader and how to empower the leader. I can tell you, being in a rock band, when we're trying to figure out our parts, when it comes time for the lead, usually the lead guitarist, to come up with a solo, that's exactly what we do. We just play the same thing over and over again while that person makes mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake until they get it. So can you see how that could help a leader in a team? Just be there, figure it out together, don't judge too soon. Okay. Adversity, this is one of my favorite stories. You know, teams often fall apart when something bad happens. Have you ever noticed that? Families, whatever, sports teams, something bad, and why? Because somebody's going, it's your fault, you did it. But oftentimes when something bad happens, it can bring out the best in you if you work with it. And so one of my favorite examples is, I don't know if you can see these guys, but there's this band from Scotland called Wolfstone. They're in kilts. Can you see? You can't see. Oh, that's too bad. They're like in little kilts and they're playing this rock guitar. They're crazy, right? I love this band. And I went to see them in Ben Lomond a few years ago. And what happened was they arrived, but their instruments did not. So everybody had a drink or two, and we're waiting, and the instruments did not come. And so they did happen to have a couple of acoustic guitars lying around, so what did they do? We all went into the back in the garden area, and they jammed music on the acoustic guitars. And then the instruments came in, and they did another set, electric. Can I tell you that that was one of the best nights of my life? And what did they do as a team? They didn't go, you didn't give the driver the right directions, damn you. They didn't do that. They just went, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do with this moment to make it work as a team? And it was so fast. It was instantaneous. We couldn't even tell that there was a problem, because I think there wasn't. They just worked with it. Okay. Talent. I don't know if you can see this, but I got a picture of Eric Clapton, and you all know who Eric Clapton is, right? Didn't they used to call him like guitar? You come from Clapton country. What did they call him? Guitar God of guitars or something? Okay, did you know he was not always great on the guitar? He had to practice his butt off to get great on the guitar. And Paul McCartney, that's the picture I have in the middle, he played piano. Did you know that he taught himself how to play piano? And they were in bands when this was happening. Did the rest of the band members go, come on, hurry up, man, just get it. They waited as they developed their talent. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever been in a team situation where you have a young'un. Can you tell I just came from the South? A young'un. Oh no, I'm gonna get a draw coming pretty soon. A young'un in your team, and you're thinking, oh, that person doesn't know anything. Intern, oh boy, they're gonna just not have any great ideas. Can I tell you something? Because I've led a lot of brainstorming sessions over the years. They often come up with the best ideas. So you don't want to judge people too soon. You also want to allow talent to develop. And there's one other thing I want to tell you that might help you next time you're sitting across from somebody and you want to smack them. The best teams, the ones that come up with the most creative ideas, are different from each other. They're made up of people who have different backgrounds. Something magical happens if you can learn to respect each other, even though you're coming from different backgrounds. Something magical happens. Do you believe me?